G'day team, this is just the recording to replace the older recording of Tripwire. The reason for that is because Tripwire has been updated quite a bit since the last recording, and the menus have also been moved around now, which basically makes the previous revision of this, or the recording of this, redundant. So I'm just going to sort of walk through the first steps of setting up Tripwire. If you're new to the Corp and you've never used Tripwire before, you're going to have to register. So what we're going to do here is there's a register tab at the top. You just need to click on that and then select user. You don't want to select admin because you have to be one of these roles in order to register for that. So as a user, you're just going to click on login with EVE Online. You're going to use your main account and your main character for this. Once that's set up, you'll be redirected back to this login tab. And what that does from here is you just have the ability to log in to Tripwire using that account and character. So we're going to click on login with EVE Online. We're going to select our main character and we're going to select authorize. Now what's going to happen first up is your map is going to look something very close to this. You'll have the default background, which is why it probably looks different to what you're looking at, but you can just ignore that for now. What you're going to need to do is the first step is you're just going to select your mask. So in the top right here, you've got the settings gears. Just click on that. You're going to come into account settings and you can select this corporate Unchained Alliance button here. And then you want to press save. So what that does is now you're hooked up to the Alliance Tripwire. You can see here in Jita, we've got this little number here and a little icon of men, and that just shows the characters that are in that system. They might be trading, they could be doing anything, but that's not important right now. The next step is to access the Unchained or the Alliance map. You're just going to click on Jita, so this little tab on the right hand side. You've got this little pen. I'm going to click on that, and we're going to change the name to Deep. So deep, whenever you hear that, that just means that someone's referring to our home, which is what we call it. It's been called that a really long time. I can't remember the exact reason for it, but it's been called that as long as I can remember. You don't need to select case base or include the EVE Scouts TheraChain right now. So you click OK, and now you can see the chains that are currently hooked up to our home. So you can see there's a bunch of people in there, and you can see whenever you click on this now, it will come up the code that you just entered in the top left hand side. Sorry. So what we're looking at here is this canvas has several components to it, right? So this top left corner here, this is the system information panel. In here, it will give you information about which jumps have happened. Pretty hopeless in wormholes for jumps and things like that. But what you can do is if you were to click on a case base, for example, Empire Space, nullsec, we can see that, you know, people were sort of crabbing in here or ratting or whatever you want to call it. And you can sort of see the times that they were doing that. In here you've got a bunch of links here to different websites. You've got Dotland, Zkill, and Oikos, and also the gates that are linked in that system. The middle section here is the signatures that have been copy pasted from people's probe launcher. So when they've jumped into that system, they've scanned down the signatures in there and they've added them to Tripwire. And you can see in here, like if you were to go into that nullsec and open your probe launcher, you'd see these signatures. And because these have already been added, you know that you don't have to scan them again. This is really helpful for people to help save them time. But if you jump out of here and you copy paste all of the SIGs in again, what generally happens is Tripwire will give you an option on the top right here, which we'll look at in a separate chapter or a separate recording. But it allows you to automatically remove anything that's not there anymore, and it will add anything as unknown. And then you know that you only have to scan down the unknown signature. On the right hand side here, we've got a notes panel. This notes panel can be useful for anything. So for example, if I click on this C6 signature here, There's just information about who's currently in there and things like that. The notes could be for anything. It could be a friendly wormhole. It could be, it could be your wormhole. So maybe you want to have that on Tripwire and you put a note on there. So when people jump into that wormhole, they'll see that note and they'll go, oh, such and such lives there. You can also see that this has been copy pasted from Zkill. So if I control click on that, it will just open up Zkill and it will take us to that corporation information. So again, it doesn't have to be exclusively hostile or enemies or things like that. It could be friendly, it could be whoever. It might even be information such as, there's maybe 10 POSs in that system, but nothing else. Just any information is better than no information. It's not compulsory, and if you come across notes that are really old and they're no longer valid, you can delete them. So just click on delete and then just maybe add a new note to say, why that note was deleted. Everyone sees what you put in here. There's no restriction on it, so all information is good. I don't think there's such thing as bad information. Down the bottom here, we're looking at the chain. So this is the canvas that shows all the connections. We can see here that we've got these solid blue lines, and we've got a broken blue dotted line here. Just on the left-hand side over here, you've got this legend, and this legend talks to what each of those lines are. So a stable line means that the connection is stable. There's nothing wrong with the jump. There's nothing wrong with jumping from, let's say, from deep to Aramachi at this time. And if I come back to this, we can see that end of life is a dotted line, which we're currently seeing here from deep to this C2. We can see here in the red text that end of life it's got 2 hours 20 remaining on that connection. And it's been updated by a member of our Corp. So if it was a fresh hole and you add that signature to the page, Tripwire will automatically set that value based on the lifetime if no one else updates that. So we'll come back to our legend here. Other things we've got in there as well, we've got mass destabbed, which is where the mass size has decreased. And then we've got mass critical, which is red, which means if you see a red line, just take care jumping through there. The wormhole might collapse behind you and you'll get stuck if you're not a scanner. And last of all, we've got frigates. So frig holes, you can jump up to a destroyer through that hole, but you can't take a cruiser through there or a DST. So if you see those on the map, don't try to take a DST through it because you'll get stuck. I'm just going to sort of show what each one of these looks like as well. So if I come down to, let's say, this one, and I'm going to say that this wormhole is now, let's say, destab. And we can see that it's put a yellow line in for that connection. And up the top here, we can see that the mass is destab. So what I'm doing at the top here is I'm just double clicking on the line. And if I change that to critical, now we can see that their line's gone red. So we're just going to change that back because I don't actually know if those are destab or VOC. I just wanted to show it and I don't want to freak anyone out that might be potentially using those chains. So what I'm going to do next is we're just going to talk about favorites. Favorites are a good way to identify how many jumps it is from let's say Aramachi to Jita. So we know it's 10 jumps from Jita from Aramachi. And we can also see here it's showing us which gates are available, just like it did on the nullsec node, which is all good. But let's just say you want to add other systems to this. So I've got Jita, Amar, Renz, and Odixie. We're just going to come up here to current system, and there's a little magnifying glass here. So if I click on there and I type HIC, and I select HIC and push enter. So we can see the system here has jumped up, and then we just want to click on this little star for add remove favorite. So now, because it's looking at HIC, if I were to click back on Aramachi, HIC is now on my list of favorites. This also allows you to, if you use the add favorite systems to chain button here, it just adds each one of your favorites here and it sort of highlights how many jumps it is to each one. I don't play with it expanded. I only ever click it when I'm sort of interested in, if I've jumped through a low sec or a high sec, just how many it is. And as you can see, it just pushes the map out quite a bit, and you have to drag the canvas around to move it. So I just leave it like this most of the time. The next thing I'm going to jump into is if we come back to the top of the screen here into our settings, we're going to look at these chain map settings. So everything except one thing in here is a personal preference. The only thing that I think is mandatory is this chain map node reference, and I'm pretty sure the mentors and the recruiters include this information, but this should always be signature ID. And then that way, when you're adding signatures to the map, it's just making sure that it's adding these signatures in like RXH, TZM, SZM. The reason that's important is because if there's something going on in the chain and you've got it set to something else, and you say to the FC, hey, I need help in this system, they're going to say, what's the SIG? And you're going to explain something completely different to what they're looking at. So that's the only thing that's really sort of mandatory, but the rest of it we're just going to quickly step through. So org chart is the format or the layout, so the chain renderer setting. So I have it currently set to org chart, which is this format here. As part of that, you can also add the show map grid lines. So I've got it set to no, but if I set that to yes and push save, it just adds these rows in here, and it's just the row number that each one of these nodes is on. So row 1 is SHU, NSI, RXH, RSZA. I don't have a need for that, and we barely use them. I've never heard anyone referring to the grid lines at all. So again, it's entirely up to you if you want that on or off. The show line aura is related to our radial format. So what that does is it puts deep in the middle of the map, and everything else stems out from around it. I'm going to show this with the show line aura off, just so you sort of see what it looks like naturally. And if we scroll down here, we can see deep is now in the middle, and the different chains branch off from the center. If I come back into my settings and I say I want to view the show line aura, it just adds a glow around each one of these chains or the connections. And if you refer back to the legend, it just shows you what those auras are. So we can see that this connection between PXM and MZN has got a blue line with a green glow around it. That just indicates that it's a medium-sized wormhole. Entirely up to you if you want to use the radial view or the org chart view. It's entirely up to you. Like, it doesn't affect anybody else. So I'm just going to set that back to org chart and set no. The next setting, bypassing the map node reference, is the show sig name on map. I've currently got system name replaced, so if a system has been given a name, I only show that. So we can see deep has a name. What we're going to do here is we're just going to show what that looks like if I change the setting. So if I go system name prefix, it's going to add the name that has been applied to that system, but it's also going to show the system name from in Eve. So if I save that, it's now showing the name plus the J code. And any other system in the map that has a name assigned to it, that will appear as name hyphen system code, whatever that is. So I'm just going to change that back because I don't like it personally, but sometimes it is handy if you're using someone else's chain and you need to get somewhere. You can just change it to that. The rest of these settings is completely up to you. It's all about how the map appears to you. So I'm just going to change that back, just because I don't want to change my own settings. Node spacing factor, this is just the amount of space between each of the nodes, where you can change the height and the width and things like that. You don't really need to change those. It's entirely up to you. We're going to come into general preferences. So show route as blobs up to 10 jumps. I've got that set to 10 jumps, but blobs refer to the number of jumps for your favorites. So if I were to set this from, let's say, 10 jumps to 20, and I save that, and now I click on my Aramachi system over here, we can see that it's added, instead of having the number like this before was 10, it's showing you all the systems that you need to take to get to these targets. So your favorite is the one with the star on the end. In the example heck here, we can see that there's like 4 lowsecks that you can take, and there's also a Triglavian system. So there's Edencom and Triglavian systems in this map, and they're all indicated by a triangle. I can't remember which one is which, but one is upside down, so there's an upside down triangle, and then there's a right way up triangle. Further to this, we've also got my selection is based on the shortest route, and I haven't turned on avoiding Tama or Ransa. So you can add extra assistance to here if you want, and you can just click on that. And then if I click out of here, come back, we can see that the amount of jumps to heck has increased because we're avoiding systems and we want to take a safer route. So I'm just going to uncheck that because I don't generally care. Signature add dialog default type. So this relates to when you're copy pasting signatures from your probe launcher in game to Tripwire. So if I were to come into one of these, we can see when they've been copy pasted and updated, we can see that the type, this is the signature, this is the wormhole type. We're going to come down and look for one that is unknown. None there. Okay, here we are. So when you copy paste your signatures from in-game to Tripwire, if you have unknown selected, it will generally appear as a blank box here. We can see this is showing unknown here. I assume it's because people went back, but when you copy it fresh, it will be blank. I will generally update those as I'm scanning, but that's just I generally keep it as unknown, because if you add every signature, if you copy paste everything and you add it to Tripwire and you've got combat selected, no one's really going to care, because all combat sites or sites are available in space through your probe launcher via the anomaly selection. So if you select anomalies, it will show you that in space. So we don't really need to add that. And you don't want to add everything as a wormhole, because not all of those signatures will be wormholes. So just keep that to unknown, and then you can just update it as you go, which is the tidier way to do it. Your signature paste default life, I have it set to 7 days. I don't recommend going below 72 hours. The reason for that is wormhole life is 24 hours. It could be slightly more than that sometimes. I've seen wormholes last a little bit longer than that, but not much. However, the reason I keep it to 7 days or 72 hours as a minimum is because relic and data sites, those can exist for multiple days, right? And let's just say sorry, I'm going to come back out of here, set that back to 7 days. When I copy paste my signatures into Tripwire, we can see age here. And what that means is that when it hits day 7, Tripwire will automatically remove these signatures based on my settings. It's really helpful because there's a lot of people that go out scanning, and if they jump into, let's say, this wormhole here, and they copy paste all the signatures from their probe launcher, they dump it into Tripwire here, and they get the option to remove anything redundant. Anything that you have scanned, like these data sites or a relic site, those might still be there. So it just means they don't have to rescan it, and they can just ignore those, and that makes their scanning experience a little bit faster, because they know they can just ignore those things. So that's just sort of talking about the signature default life. Again, I just keep mine to 7. Some people have it set to 28, but I'd never go below 72, just as a general rule. Your signature copy output separator, don't change that, there's no need to. And your background image. So background image, I'm currently using an image that I have hosted for myself, and I've got other people using that as well if they want it. But if I remove that, you're just going to see the Tripwire default background, and this is what comes with the application. So I'm just going to drop my background in there and save that, and we can see that it just changes it pretty quickly. The UI scale, this just sets the overall UI of the map. So if you've got really good eyes, or maybe you've got really bad eyes, I don't know. But if you were to change that, you can see in the background here, it's just changing the size of things here. So I'm just going to change that back to 1.5, which is just because of the resolution of my screen, and save that. And the last thing in this menu is personal statistics. So some people like to track how they're going. They might want to set themselves some sort of personal goal. And I know people that have sort of said, I want to add 5,000 signatures by the end of the year and things like that. You can also sort of see any comments you've added. So comments is referring to the notes panel. So this, I call it notes, but maybe it is originally called comments. I'm not sure. But that's all that talks about. So that pretty much covers everything in this recording for Tripwire. If you're new to the Corp, welcome. But if you're someone who's been here a while and you're just watching this for a refresher, I hope it was helpful, and I will do another recording for the scanning and copy pasting of signatures into Tripwire and explain how that all works. Cheers.